Ruby language basics 2. So here we are going to continue learning the syntax aspect of Ruby programming language. So we are going to learn the methods basics, and we are going to learn some of the advanced features you need to know when you are using method, argument, visibility, and method with a bang. And we'll talk about the concept of modules. And then control structure is pretty simple, like if and else and while, things like that. And we'll see how Ruby handles exception handling. We'll talk about Ruby operators, and we have already seen examples of Ruby operators already. And we'll talk about regular expression as well. Method basics. So, as you have seen in the previous example, methods are defined using the keyword def, followed by the method name and the set of arguments. So in this example, we are defining a method named as my_method name, and is receiving two arguments, argument 1 and argument 2. And basically inside this method, all it does is just printing out that argument and argument 2. It has a single statement. Now, parentheses are optional, both in method definition as well as method invocation. So we have seen examples where the parentheses are omitted in method invocation. So this definition of my method 1, here you don't have to have a parenthesis, so I can omit parenthesis in the method definition. When you are invoking a method, in this case put is in fact a method, okay, method, and when you are invoking a method you can also omit parenthesis. So here put parenthesis argument 1 comma argument 2 can be specified without parenthesis like this. So parentheses are in general omitted in Ruby, and especially in Rails you rarely see, you probably don't see any parentheses in Rails programs, because in Ruby you don't have to have a parenthesis in method definition as well as method invocation. And we'll see some more examples of how parentheses can be omitted moving forward. Okay, so let's talk about the concept of class method versus instance method. So this works pretty much the same in Java. So a class can contain both class method and instance method, just like in Java. And in Java, that class method sometimes called a static method, right? Okay. So in order to create class method, you are going to define the method with self dot keyword. So here in my class we define two methods. One is class method and the other one is instance method. This one is class method because it starts with self dot, okay, and the name of the method is find everybody, and then it's using user domain class and use the find method and passing all as an argument. Okay, just like in Java, in order to invoke a class method, you basically use a class name. So in this case, I can say my class dot find underscore everybody. So you don't have to create an object instance in order to create a class method. So we have seen examples of class method already, like a new is a class method, okay, because you basically say my class dot new, right? So new is a class method from object class basically. Okay, so let's see how we can invoke methods. So just like in Java, basically you are going to pass a set of arguments with the method. So method name and set of arguments. Now, as we talked about, the parentheses can be omitted. So this one can be specified with a method name and argument 1 and argument 2. And if there is no argument, basically that is empty parenthesis, right? That empty parenthesis could be also omitted. So when you see method name without anything, basically that is a method without any arguments. Okay, so we have seen many examples of this one in our previous exercises, right? You know, whenever you are using an object and dot something, that is basically a method name without any arguments. Okay, and if they have an argument, basically it is specified without any parentheses. Okay. Now, if you use method result immediately for calling another method, then you have to use parentheses. So this is the only case that you might in fact see parentheses. What that means is that if you're using the result of invocation of this method name, and then you're calling reverse method from the result of this method invocation, then you have to have a parenthesis. Otherwise, it's going to be syntax error. Okay. Okay, return value of a method. So as I mentioned before, a method returns the value of the last expression evaluated, and return statement is in fact optional. Okay, so in this case we have defined add method, and it's receiving x and y as an argument, and it's a to statement. Okay, and the return value is going to be the evaluation of the last statement. So in this case, it will add x and y, and the value of it will be returned when this add method is invoked. Okay, and you can have a return statement if you want to, but that is not required. Okay. You can certainly have return statement explicitly. In general, you want to have explicit return statement when you want to return control on a particular point prior to the end of the function declaration. So instead of actually having this put, this is not evaluated, in fact this is going to be evaluated, right? And put is basically a method, and it returns in fact nil. Okay, so when you call add method, it will in fact return nil. However, if you want to return before the last statement, then you can actually use return explicitly. Yeah, so this is an artificial, artificially constructed kind of example, but just to give you a sense of how and when you can use return statement explicitly. So this is useful. Usage of explicit return statement could be useful when you want to terminate a loop or return from a function as a result of conditional expression. Okay, so let's do exercise 1. Again, you are going to download the zip file, and you are going to unzip the zip file, and you are going to see the lab documentation. So I have already reading lab documentation, and let's take a look at the exercise 0. So this is method basics. Okay, so the first thing we're going to see is you can take a look at documentation of any class of your choice. So we can certainly take a look at the methods of array class. Okay, so I can go over here, and you can actually see these are all methods that are available in array class. Okay, and you can certainly find it out from the IRB, like array.public instance method, define or something like that, and it should return true for any the method like a collect or collect bang and things like that. So you can certainly take a look at the methods that are available. Okay, so now here we are going to use some of those methods. Now those methods can be chained. So here we have an array object, and we like to actually see unique values of this array. Okay, so let me just I'm gonna just open the folder, and I'm going to go labs. This one. Okay, so so this is one, Groovy method chaining. Control B, Groovy method chaining. Okay, so basically I am calling unique method first, and then I'm going to sort it, and then I'm going to sort and reverse. Okay, and here I'm not going to call unique, but instead I'm going to call the sort and reverse. Okay, so if I run this code, and it should work as expected. Okay, so here it will return just unique values, and then this is a sorted version, this is reverse, and this one I'm just sort and reverse. Okay, so in this exercise you are basically exercising the chaining of methods that are available in a typical Ruby class. Okay, all right. Yeah, so I added for your own exercise, so if you have time, try to do this for your own exercise as well. So chain another method of array and see how things work out. Okay, so 0.2 we are exercising class method versus instance method. So here we are defining class method, and this is defining instance method. Okay, so here I can call class method by using class name, and here in order to call instance method you have to create an object instance first before you call it. Okay, so if you try to call this instance method from person class, that is going to cause syntax error. Okay, all right, so that is that. And the method argument. Okay, so this is the I defined my method. Okay, and here we have in fact have a parenthesis. Okay, and now we can omit parentheses. So this is in fact the same thing as this guy. Okay, my method 2. And then you can also pass a variable number of arguments. Okay, so Java now supports this one as well, right? Okay, so you can certainly pass a variable number of arguments. Okay, so in this case we create an object instance from hello class, and then we are calling my method 1, passing Sang Shin. Method 2, so method 2 again taking 2 arguments, right? Now if you try to pass more than 2 arguments to method 1, that is gonna be a syntax error. Okay, so let's try that. Ruby method argument. Okay, so let's actually run this guy first, and things work as expected, right? Okay, so let me actually talk about this case. So I am actually passing 3 arguments to method 3, and method 3 can take any number of arguments. Okay, so in this case it should actually take the 3 arguments, and basically as you're gonna learn later on, we're gonna actually talk about this one in a bit more detail later on. It will actually construct it will actually receive this guy as individual arguments. It will receive 3. So if I actually add 4, so let me just add another one, like and then I can XYZ, something like that, and then it should work as expected. So it returns 4 arguments. Now for this guy, if I try to, so if you're not using this variable number of syntax, but here is receiving, it's just expecting just 2 arguments. But if you try to access that guy with incorrect number of arguments, in this case we are passing 3, right? Okay, so in this case it's going to have a syntax error. So it says wrong number of arguments. Okay, so that is a method argument. And 0.4, now we are experimenting with the parentheses. Okay, so here we define my method. Okay, and it's receiving a variable number of arguments, and we basically displayed the length of those arguments, and we just display it. Okay, so here this is my method, and we have a parenthesis, and we pass 3 arguments, and we can omit parentheses, so no parentheses in this case. Now you can pass hash object as the last argument. So we have hash object, which has 2 key value pairs, right? And because now this is something I don't think we have talked about yet, but we'll actually talk about that in a bit more later on. When hash object is the last argument, then you don't have to have this hash curly brace. So this is the same thing as this guy. Okay. Now for this hash, we are going to use the simpler syntax. Okay. So these three things are the same. Okay. Yeah. So in Grails program, you're going to actually see a lot of this kind of syntax. Okay, and this is in fact coming from the parenthesis, the curly brace, and then curly brace is omitted. Okay. Now, if you actually pass a special block like this at the end, then you have to have either parenthesis or hash. But for now, don't worry about this. Okay, so we're gonna actually learn about the code block later in a bit more detail. So for now, don't worry about this much. Okay. All right, now let's move on to this guy. We have method 2 is receiving argument and argument 2, and then it returns array of those two arguments. Okay, so here we are. So this is a case when you are receiving, when you're actually using a result. Okay, so this is a result, and then I'm actually calling a method. So without, in this case, you have to have a parenthesis. So this one works fine. Okay, because there's a parenthesis of these two arguments. Okay. However, if you try to call, so in this case, if you try to omit here, this is going to be syntax error. Okay. All right. So let's actually try parenthesis. Ruby method parenthesis, and if you run it, it works okay. However, I'm going to just try the last one, and it's going to be, oops. Why it doesn't actually have a syntax error? Maybe it's not a syntax error, it's just too short. Yeah. Oh, okay. So so this is the problem. Yeah. So the so let me just delete all this guys so that we have more clean, and Control V. So this one returns let's see, argument. Oh, okay. So yeah, it does have, in fact, they have the error condition. Yeah, so that is a syntax error. Okay. All right. So that is 04. All right. So that is it. Okay. So I'm going to. So let's talk about the arguments in methods. You can set the default value for the arguments. So in this case, we have defined some method, and here we have two arguments. Each of those two arguments are set with the default values. So value argument is set with the default string, and the array argument is set with empty array. Okay, so in this case, in this method, basically we are displaying the value argument, and for array we are going to display the length of it. Okay, so let's say we are calling this sum method with a single argument, in this case something string. So in this case it will override the default value. However, we are not passing any second argument, which means the default empty array will be set to a all argument. So in this case, what gets displayed is something which is overriding the value, the argument default value, and for ALL array, the length of it is 0. Okay, so in this case we are using default argument of empty length of array. Okay, as we have seen, a variable length argument is also supported. So the last argument, if it is set with a star, okay, basically whatever number of arguments will be captured in a form of array. Okay. So in this case, in calculate value method is receiving x and y, the first and second argument, and the rest of it will be captured as other values, variable number of argument with the star. And so if the caller is passing this variable number of argument, in this case ABC and ABCD, here we are just displaying that other values. It will be captured in a form of an array. It will be converted into an array. So here, it will display ABC and ABCD array. Okay, so you can also actually convert array object into a number of arguments. So basically, suppose if we have an array object of ABC and I want to pass it in a form of individual argument, again I can use a star for that case as well. Okay, so depending on the value of array, either it could be considered as this direction. If array is an array object, it will be the expanded into individual argument. Or in our previous case, if you're passing individual argument, then it will be captured as an array object. So the usage of star will be different. The behavior of the star will be different depending on what object type you're passing as an argument. Okay, so you can also pass an hash. In fact, the passing a hash is very popular in Ruby programs. Okay, because it gives you the best on both worlds. You can actually, in fact, have a named arguments because you are basically passing key value pairs, right? And you can also have a variable argument length as well. So you can have as many key value pairs as you want, right? So it provides a named arguments and the variable argument length. Those two benefits are captured in a form of a hash. So let's say we have defined a method called the accept hash and it's receiving a single argument, and we're going to call it var. And basically we are going to inspect that argument by calling inspect method. Okay, so here we are calling that accepts hash method and passing a hash. Okay, so we have a hash of two key value pairs, arg1 and arg2. Okay, so when you call this one, we are basically, it will just say, it will just display this. So inspect basically providing an object form. Okay, here you don't have to have a parenthesis and you don't have to have the curly brace, right? Okay. Yeah, so basically usage of parentheses for argument and braces for hash arguments. So here we're going to actually go over the rules of omission one more time. So parentheses can be omitted for arguments, as we know of. Now, if the last argument is a hash, the braces for the hash can be also omitted as well. Okay, so in fact, these three are all the same. Okay, so let's see, this is a case. We are calling accept hash, and then we have a parenthesis, and we have a single argument, and argument type happen to be hash. Okay, because this is hash is a last argument in this case, we don't have to have this curly brace. And because you don't have to have a parenthesis, you can omit this parenthesis as well. So this is the same as these two. So accept hash arg1 and giving arg1 and two key value pairs. And here we are using new syntax. So instead of using colon arg1 and then rocket and the value, we are going to use this notation. Okay, so you're going to see this notation in Rails programs a lot. Okay, so whenever you see this notation, like a name of the method and bunch of this hash values, hash key value pairs, basically you can think of it as a hash with this parenthesis, and those are in fact arguments. Okay, so calling a method with a code block. Again, we haven't learned the concept of code block yet, and you can think of code block a chunk of code that is being passed as a special argument. Okay, so if you are going to pass a code block to a function, meaning a method, however, you need parentheses for arguments. Okay, so here if you are passing code block at the end, and then you have to have a parenthesis like this. Okay, so this one and this one, either one is fine. So if you try to pass a code block without this parenthesis, then that is going to cause a compile error. Okay, so let's talk about the method with a bang. So in Ruby, method that ends with exclamation mark is called a bang, modify the object. So method that do not end with an exclamation mark return value, but it do not modify that object. Okay, so let's see an example. So we have a variable which is assigned with a string called JPassion, small letters. Okay, so in ILB we are basically returning the expression. So expression evaluation of this expression is JPassion, right? And now we're going to call upcase method of the string. So it will return JPassion. However, if you try to see the actual contents of X, it still contains lowercase. Okay, so the actual object does not change. Upcase just returns the upcase value, but object itself does not get changed. However, if you use the bang, like x.upcase bang, and of course it will return the upcase like this. However, if you take a look at the x itself, it's also changed to upcase. Okay, so the bang basically modified the object as well. Let's talk about the visibility of method. So by default, all methods in Ruby classes are public, okay, meaning they can be accessible by anyone. However, you can hide those methods by using private or protected object methods. Okay. Now, this private and protected, those are not really keywords like in Java. They are in fact methods, okay, that operate on the class. So it will in fact change the visibility of the method dynamically, okay, because is a method gets executed during runtime. So let's see an example here. So private methods. Yeah, I should actually remove this guy. Private methods can be called only within a calling object. Okay, so you cannot access other instances private method directly. So if private is invoked without argument, it sets the access to private for all subsequent methods. Okay, so let's see an example of this. And protected methods can be called by any instances of the defining class or subclasses. Okay, so that's protected. Okay, something similar to Java. So in this case, we have class example class, and they have a two method. We have a defined method A. Now we call private. Again, this private is a method. So this private will be executed during runtime. And after that, any method after that will be considered as a private method. Okay, so nobody else will be able to execute these methods, okay, except the method inside the same class. So all methods that follow will be made private, not accessible by outside object. Okay, again, this is done during runtime because private is a method that gets executed. Okay, so private method. So this is an example. So you can also actually use private method with an argument. Okay, so private is a method and it can receive an argument. The name of the argument is the name of the method. Okay, so in this case, even though this private is after this method, you can actually say private method P. So, here method P is now, the visibility of method P changed to private during runtime. Okay, all right. Okay, so let's do exercise 1. So exercise 1 is so default. Yeah, so these are pretty much the same code that I have shown you in the presentation. So this is the default value assignment. Okay, so we are going to call default value method, and basically we can have a parenthesis if you want to. And here we are passing a single argument, and we are passing two arguments. Okay, and if you're trying to pass extra argument, that is going to be a compile error, well, syntax error. Okay. All right, so add another argument to the default value method with the default value. 1.2, it is a variable length argument. So here we have a method that receives variable number of arguments. Okay, so in this case, it is passing two arguments, is passing three arguments. So in our code, basically, we just display the length of the arguments, and then we just display those arguments. So when we run it, it will say the number of people are 2, and number of people 3, and it display Mike and John and Charles, Younga, and Daniel. Okay. For your own exercise, call hello method with a 4 argument. Array as an argument. Okay, so here we are passing, this is an array object, and we are actually using the star. Okay, so basically, it will divide into 3 expanded arguments. Okay, so the length is going to be 3, right, initially. So the length of these 3, and then argument is 1 and A and Sang Shin. Okay, let's see, it's calling only 2. Why is actually, oh, okay, so it calls this and then this and the, so these 3 are from this guy, which is the length is 3. Now here we are just passing array object, right? So that in that case it receive a single argument, because array object is a single argument. So in that case is the number of argument is 1. Okay, their argument values are 3.4.5. However, if you actually use a star, then it will expand array object into 3, 4, 5. So in that case, the length of argument should be 3. Okay, so pretty straightforward. 1.4, we are passing hash argument. Okay, so this is something that we talked about already a bit. Okay, so we are passing hash argument here, and we don't have to have the curly brace, because hash argument is the last argument of the method, and then we can omit parentheses. So these 3 methods are all same. Okay, and this is a case where hash argument is the only argument, and that is considered as the last argument as well. So here, this one and this one is the same, and in this case we are just passing a single hash object. Okay, and let's see, and here we are passing hash. So in this case, this is the case where hash argument is not the last argument. So in that case, you have to actually have a parenthesis and curly brace. Okay, otherwise if you try to do that, it's going to be a syntax error. Okay, so in this case, hash is the beginning, it doesn't have a parenthesis, so that is a syntax error. Again, this is the hash is the first argument, it doesn't have a curly brace, so it is a syntax error. Okay. Okay, so this is a bang method, and this is the same example that we have seen in the slide. So I'm gonna just move forward, and bang number 2. So here we have an array object, and we actually sorted it, so it should actually return. So this is the case. We have an array object, we sorted it, so this is the sorted value. However, if you just display the array object, it still returns 3, 2, 6, 7, 5. Okay. Now, when you use the bang, so in this case, I'm not only sorting it, but also changing array object itself. Okay. So when I display the array object, it can be you can see this is a sorted value as well. Okay. And the private and protect is private, so you're going to just use the private. So here we have 2 methods, and method B is calling method P, and that's perfectly okay, because method P is private and it can be called inside method B or method A. So it basically, method B is calling private method of method B. In general, when you use a private method like this, it's actually good practice to have this method to be indented like this, so that you can see these are in fact the private method. Okay, so anything after private, they are considered as a private method. Okay, so now, we have created the example object from example A, and you can certainly call object A and object B. Okay, however, if you try to call A and method P directly, that's not allowed. Okay, because you cannot certainly call it directly from the outside of this class object here. Okay, so you can check whether private and just to see whether private and protected are in fact the private methods of class. So you can say ILB simple prompt, and if you do class private method sort, you can see in fact private is one of the method. Okay, just to show these are all methods. Okay, in fact, you can use the private method defined private. That means whether private is defined as one of the private method. Okay, so it should actually return true. Okay. Okay, so I'm gonna give you guys about 10 minutes to try exercise 1. Okay. Next topic is modules. What is a module? Modules are a way of grouping things together, and it provides a namespace. It's like a Java packages in that sense. So now in terms of how to reference a class in a module so I'm gonna just use this example. If class C is defined in a module M, you can make a reference to C class by using this notation: the name of the module, colon, and the name of the class. So this is the syntax you are going to use in Ruby. Okay, so basically you are referencing C class on the M module. Okay, so you can also have methods. Rather than class, you can also have just methods in a module, and we're going to see how that can be used later on. Modules cannot be instantiated, meaning, just like a package in Java, you cannot instantiate a package object from Java package, right? Same deal in module. You cannot create an object instance from a module, just like in Java. Okay, so let's see an example. So in this case, we have defined two modules. One is people module, the other one is plant module. Now, each of these modules have a class called the stock. So stock on the people module have method definition of about method, and it will display I am a person. And on the plants, the stock method will contain a method called about, and it will return I am a plant. So even though the name of the class stock is the same, because they are in different modules, they are considered as the different class. Okay, just like in Java. So now in order to create, Now in order to create a stock class object from people module, you are going to use this notation: people colon stock called new. So you're calling new method of stock class under people module. And here, the last line, we are creating a stock class the object on the plant module. So the A and B variables are referencing completely different object. Okay. Okay, now let's talk about the concept of mix-in. As I said, this is a difference from Java. A module can contain just methods instead of classes. Okay, so here we are going to define a module called aeronautics, and it contains a single method called the lunch. Okay, now for class rocket ship, in order to use that method of that module, you just include it. You just include aeronautics, and then you should be able to use it. So here we created an object of rocket ship, and then we can call launch method, okay, which is from aeronautics module. Okay, so this is an example where a module contains methods, and you're basically using those methods by including that module. Okay. Okay, so mix in with a multiple methods. So suppose if you have defined two modules, one is aeronautics and the other one is calculator. Now by adding these two modules, you can use any methods defined in these two modules. So we have rocket ship, which includes both aeronautics and calculator module. And then once you created the rocket ship object, we should be able to use any method in those two modules. So we can call launch method and we can call add method. So this is called a mix-in. Basically, you mix in from mix in the methods from different modules. Okay. Now, if your module is physically in another file, then you have to require that module before you can use it in include statement. So in our case, in this case, the whole thing is a single physical file, so there is no reason in this case Rocketship has to require any particular file. Okay. However, if a module is defined a physically different file, suppose if that module is defined in Ruby module underscore define.rb file, then you have to require that file. So it's like, you know, import in Java, even though it's a little bit different. Yeah, I think it's probably more close to include statement in JSP, I would say. Okay, so you require that particular file, and then you should be able to use it. Okay. Okay, so let's do exercise 3. So that is modules. Did we do? Oh, yeah, I think we should actually do variables as well in our previous exercise. So I'm gonna actually just do this as well, so that you guys can actually do exercise 2 as well in this at this time. So dynamic typing, as we talked about in Ruby, a variable, the type of variable will be determined by the value it is assigned to. Okay, so in this case, it is assigned with 1. So if you display class of it, it should actually return fixed num. And this is a class of string. This is a class of regular expression. So regular expression is natively supported in Ruby, and the type of that object is going to be the regular expression. And this is a hash. Same thing with this, and this one is an array. Okay. Okay, local variable. So local variable is only accessible in the context where you define it. Usually a method, be it in the class or instance method. I mean, let me see. Did I miss something? I thought. Let's just see whether I have. Okay, so it looks like I have a local variable not actually specifically talked about. Let me see, exercise. Okay, yeah, so it looks like I need to actually add local variable presentation. Anyway, so let me just talk about these things, nothing really fancy here. So local variable, we have I0 local variable, and we have I1 local variable. And so here I should be able to access I0 and I1. Okay, so you know, this one should be able to access this guy as well as its own. Okay. And here I should be able to access this guy because they are in the same, you know, same scope. However, if you try to access I1, which is defined in this scope, it should not be able to access, so it should actually return nil. Same thing with any variable that is not present. You know, if you try to access XX, it should return nil. Okay. Okay, instance variable. Yeah, so this is an example of instance variable that I think we talked about before, right? So here we have a setter method, so to speak. So yeah, foo bar, and this is a getter method of getting foo and bar. Okay, so we create an hello object and we call set foo with the 3. So in this case, instance variable of foo will be set with the value 3, and this one is setting the var instance variable with hello, and then we are just calling those getter method. Okay, so instance variable is basically you know, will represent different value depending on instances. So if you have multiple instances from the same class, then those instances should have different values, could have different values for those instance variables. Okay, again, that's not that much different from instance variable concept in Java. Okay, class variable is basically you can set a class variable 10 here, and we have a getter method. Basically, we have a class method that just returns a value of it. Okay, now this is actually interesting. So you know, if you change the class variable value with so this is at this point if I try to display the size, it should return 10. Now we have created a child class from this polygon parent class. Now we change the value of that class variable 3. Okay, then you can see not only the triangle object as well as polygon object, everything, all classes and subclasses and superclass, any classes in the hierarchy will actually have a changed value. Okay, in this case, we are changing. We have created another child class from Polygon, and then we set the class variable to 4, and then everything changes 4. So in Groovy, the class variable in fact is shared among all class hierarchy. Okay, so that's actually exercise 2. Now let's move on to exercise 3. So this is the namespace example. So this is exactly the same code that we have seen. The people and plant, it has its own stock. Even though they share the same name, they are considered different class. Okay, so in this case, we are creating an object from module and stock class. Same thing here. Okay, and the mixin example, this is the same code that we have seen. So this is the again same code we have seen in the presentation, aeronautics and calculator. And so this one contains a launch method, this one contains add method, and by including these two modules, and you should be able to access the methods in those modules. Sharing, yeah, so this is actually an interesting example. So in this case, you can actually let's actually have a module called the stringify, and it defines a single method called stringify, and it has the instance variable called value. Okay, and so you know first, when this stringify is invoked, if value is 1, it will return the character 1, character 2, and character 3, and if nothing is set, then it will return 4. Okay, now we are defining another class called myNumber, and then we include this module stringify. Okay, and it does have its own instance variable called value. Okay, so in this case, they are in fact actually kind of synchronizing this value instance variable together. Okay, so let's see an example of this one. So in this case, we created the myNumber object, and we are passing new. Okay, so this is initialize method, right? So it's passing new number 2 to this guy. So in this case, value is set to 2, right? Okay, so when you are calling stringify, so you know stringify, this value of this myNumber object is going to be used, so it will print out 2. Okay, however, if we created another class called myNumber2, now we include stringify, and it doesn't have its own value. It does not have its own add value instance variable, right? Okay, so we created myNumber2 object, and then if we call it, because value, you know, this instance variable is not set anything, it will just use 4. It will return 4, so it will display 4 here. Okay, so let's actually try this. It's the Ruby module mix 3. Ruby module mixed 3. Okay, so this is a code. Let me run it, and you can see this is returning 2, and the last one is returning 4. Okay, so the idea of in this case is that the variable, you can actually have a variable defined in the module, or you can also actually have a variable defined in the class itself, and they should be actually understood each other. Okay, requiring a module. So in this case, we are going to define module. So you know, stringify is going to define in the Ruby module define.rb file. So this is a case we have a module defined in a separate file. Okay, so you know we define. So this is just defined stringify module. Now we are going to use that module in our Ruby module require.rb file. So you know the require.rb file. So it's going to use that module. In order to use that module, it has to require that. Okay, because they are in the same directory. You know, we are using this dot notation, current directory, and Ruby module define. Okay, so this one should work fine. So you know, if I Control B, that works fine. But if I comment this guy out, and then you know it's gonna cause a compiler error. Uninitialized constant. Yeah, so it doesn't know how to invoke it doesn't know, you know, the stringify the module. Okay. Okay. So I'm going to give you guys about 10 or 15 minutes to exercise. Yeah, I'll give you 15 minutes. Exercise 2 and 3. Next topic is control structure, which is not that much different from other programming languages, so nothing much to talk about here. So, we have seen assignment. Assignment can be changed, so this is actually interesting syntax here. And both A and B are set to 4. Here, A plus B, and this one is a shortcut. Same thing as this guy. And yeah, so parallel assignment. So this is interesting. So basically, we are replacing A with B and B with A, so you're exchanging values. Okay. Array splitting, so we have an array and then we can have star array, and it will be set to A and B. Okay. And this is if and else, and nothing much to talk about. This is the case. So you have a case, and then you have a when and end. Okay. So in Ruby, you can in fact have a range of values here. So span probability, the range is from 0 to 10, 10 to 50, and 50 to 90, 90 and 100, and things like that. Okay. This is while. Okay. And we also have until. Okay. And so this is a for loop. Okay. Yeah. So this is kind of obvious, so I'm gonna just move ahead. Exercise 5 is basically doing the control structure. So I'm gonna just continue all the presentation of this topic, and I'll give you guys time to do exercises. Exception handling. So exceptions are implemented as classes, and all of them are in fact descendants of exception class. So this works like in Java, right? Okay. And these are example exceptions that are already actually defined in Ruby. So argument error, index error, interrupt, load error, and things like that. Now, this is how you can handle exceptions. So here we have a begin and end. So begin, and this is the code that gets executed and then might actually generate or throw an exception. If you want to catch exception, you are going to use rescue method. Okay, so rescue, and basically, this is if the syntax error is my syntax error, it's like a catch in Java, and then you do whatever you need to do. And this is the case, my syntax error and my standard error. Let's see, and then we have else, and code that runs only if no error goes here. So if there is no error, then the code of this will be executed. Okay, and ensure is like a finally, so anything on the ensure will be executed regardless. Okay, all right. Yeah, so basically this syntax is that if there is a syntax error, I want to throw, I want to actually convert it into my syntax error. Okay, and this one, if there is a standard error, then I want to convert it into my standard error object. Okay, so that is the exercise 6. So let me actually talk about exercise 6. So this is the case. We define an array object, and we set I to 5. So basically, we are going to use if statement. If I is greater than the array, we want to throw an exception. So in order to throw an exception, you are going to use a raise method. Raise, and this is the exception, and this is the message. Okay, so when you are going to execute this code, what you're going to see is the Ruby exception, and what we are going to see is index error. The Ruby exception raise, yeah, so index error right here. Okay, and the values of this is going to be specified. So 5 and the size equals 2. So this is the string with interpolation. So I is set to 5, and the size of array is 2. Okay, and it's happening in the main method. So main method is basically kind of hidden in this code. Okay, so rescuing an exception using rescue. So this is the catch. So begin if there is if you try to open a file that doesn't exist, okay, then it will cause an exception. So we are going to catch it by using rescue method, and basically we are going to display the message file not found. So when we run this code, this is what you are going to see. So let me actually take a look at the Ruby exception rescue. Okay, so Control B, and oops, this is the rescue Ruby exception rescue. Maybe this is not the one exception. Oh, this is retry. Okay, so this is the one I was actually looking for. Control B, yeah. So file not found. Okay, so if I change this one to really or something like that, and it will display that message. Okay, so we basically handled it by displaying the message and retrying. So if I want to, so let me actually take a look at the code. Okay, so this is the code that is, we're going to actually set fname with unexpected file. Okay, and counter set to 0. So what we are going to do is we are going to try to open this non-existent file. So we are going to have an exception, right? Okay. So you know that will be caught by this rescue method. So we are going to display this message: rescue is entered, provide a correct file name, and retry. So what we are going to do is we are going to provide we are going to reset the name of fname variable with the existing file. Now we have an existing file. If you take a look at the so this is something we have existing file. So basically what we want to do is we are going to retry. So retry if this condition is met. Counter is less than 5. So counter is less than 5. So it will retry the command that actually failed. So it will retry this command. Okay, and then it will try to read the contents and it will display. Okay, so that is the this code is Ruby exception retry. Ruby exception retry. Yeah, so that's the one. So if I run the code, then it worked fine. Okay, so if I just change the existing file to something really special, and then then if I run it, then it will display the contents, something really special. Okay, so retry is possible. So exception code structure. So basically this is the code that I just talked about. So we are going to rescue with a twice. Okay, and then else. Else is entered if there is no error. Okay, so here we have set age is 18, but we throw an exception at age 60. If age is less than 60, we throw an exception. Okay, so when we run the code, second rescue is entered, so it will cause, this will actually cause a standard error. Okay, so here basically we display second rescue is entered, and unknown general error, and my standard error inspect. The object is basically this runtime error. Okay, and then this one gets invoked regardless. Okay, this code doesn't get executed because we have an exception. So let's actually Ruby exception structure. Ruby exception structure. Okay, so if we run it, that what gets displayed. Now if I just set this one to ages yeah, I'm going to, if age is greater than 60, then we're going to actually raise the exception. So in this case, we should actually see this code gets executed, because that's the case when there is no error. Okay, so let's save it and let's run it, And yeah, so you can see else is entered. Yeah, so that gets executed, and this code in short gets executed regardless, so that should be also get executed. Okay, all right, let's actually move on to the last topic, Ruby operator. Most Ruby operators are actually method calls. So in fact, in Ruby, everything is an object and everything is in the form of a method, including operators. So if you say a plus b, basically plus is a method of a. So this is the same thing as a dot plus is a method, and then b is an argument. Okay, so all these operators, arithmetic operators, comparison operators, and assignment operators, these are all considered in a form of a method. Okay, so you can certainly exchange it to dot notation of any of this guy, and then the second one as an argument with a parenthesis. Okay. These are bitwise operators, logical operators, ternary operators, and range operators. This one, a two vertical bar, this one evaluates a first, and if it is not false or nil, if it is not false or not, if it is not nil, then evaluation stops, and then the value of a will be returned. If a is either false or nil, then b gets evaluated, and the value of b is going to get returned. So this is a common practice of returning a default value b if the first value has not been set. Okay. By the way, this is the same notation. This is the same notation as this. Okay. Okay, so exercise 7. So let's take a look at exercise 7. These are operators. So here basically we are going to try this. So let's actually try ILB, and we are going to say if I want to hello times 2. Oh, what am I doing? What is the okay, here we go. 2. It will display hello 2 twice. Let me just have a space like this. Okay. Again, this the star is a method. So what you can do is hello, and then you are going to dot, and then you can say the method name and argument. Okay, so again, we don't need a parenthesis because in Ruby you don't have to have a parenthesis for argument. So this one should also work the same. However, if you want, you can have a parenthesis like this. Okay, so they are all same. Okay, comparison, it works pretty much the same. So here, the equal, not equal, greater than, and all that stuff. Okay. For an object, you can also use equals question mark. Basically, it's checking whether they are pointing to the same object or not. Okay, so we have done that when we are looking into symbols, right? Okay, so that is the end of the hands-on lab, and also regular expression. So regular expression is natively supported in Ruby. I assume most of you have some knowledge on regular expression. So in Ruby, you can actually use this notation / pattern or %sign alt pattern. So typically you're going to use this notation. So this one is match either Ruby on Rails. This is the OR, and this one is the same as above. This is matching a string containing A followed by one or more B. So plus sign means one or more, followed by C. Okay, and this one is star means 0 or more. So this, the difference between these two is that B is 1 or more, and this one is 0 or more of B. And matching operator is matching operator with respect to regular expressions. It returns the position in a string where match is found, or nil if the pattern did not match. So in this case, this is the matching operator. So basically it will return so if it returns a position, that means match has occurred, so it will just display this message. Basic patterns, so dot matches any single character, and so this a.c matches abc. .at, it will match had, cat, and bat, and things like that. the square matches a single character that is contained within the bracket. So ABC means any A, B, or C will be qualified with this pattern. This one is A to Z, and this one is ABC, and then X to Z, and this one is matches hat and cat. So these are pretty simple regular expression examples. This one, yeah, matches the single character that is not contained within the bracket. So this case matches any character other than A, B, C. This one, any single character that is not lowercase of A to Z. This one is all strings, any strings matched by dot at except bat. Okay. This one, without the bracket, basically matches the starting position within a string. So in this case, it matches hat and cat because it could be either H or C as a starting character. This one is ending position. Okay, so this one is, it will be matched with the hat or cat. Okay, because any character that ends with a T and any character that starts either with H or C, and it has to be A in the middle, right? So the only examples that are qualified is hat and cat. Okay. These are character abbreviations, so you can actually use \W is a word character. Anything in A to Z, small character A to Z, and 09 will be qualified. So in this case, any character, so it's going to be FO, and any character that belongs to this guy, and then we have a plus, so one or more, and then a single any character here, and then star. So that star means any character, and the one or more, right? Okay, so so we talked about star, plus, and question mark. The star is 0 or more, plus is 1 or more, and question mark is 1 or 0. Okay, so that is the quick description of regular expression, and we are going to use the regular expression in one of the hands-on labs later on in Rails. Okay, so I am going to give you